I want to take this particular video and specifically address the misconception of the image of Jesus Christ that we have as the American church. Several years ago, I had a good friend of mine. He was a big fella. He was a boxer, really strong, tough guy. And he was marrying a Catholic girl, and in order to marry her, he had to become a Catholic. So he, for a year on Wednesday nights, would attend a class. And after the year, there was just one night we were talking before he got married, and he had brought up, we were talking about Jesus, and he brought up that why would people be so eager to worship such a dainty little wimpy guy? And I asked him, I was like, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, like, he kind of was very feminine, and then he got killed. It doesn't seem like a very tough fella to me. And I thought, what did they teach you in that class? And I realized that without the knowledge of recognizing that Jesus specifically came to die, which is one of the toughest things a man can ever do, is to lay down his life for somebody, not only did he do that, but there is this image that Americans have of what Jesus is like. And a lot of this stems from the movies. You know, growing up as a kid in the late 70s, early 80s, movies about Jesus didn't make him a very appealing person to me as I was growing up. I remember kind of thinking, this isn't a very appealing scenario to me. And I also remember looking at old paintings of his, and he just seemed very feminine and dainty, and I knew where my friend was, where he was coming from. So really, we have to get that image out of our heads. That's not the real image of Jesus Christ. Let's just start there. You know, that particular image, the image that we see from some of those old paintings, came from a German painter in the 1800s, Heinrich Hoffman. And he was very famous around here. But even before then, the 1500s, there was a painter named Karl Vogel von Vogelstein who made him very feminine. And these paintings were wildly famous. Many of us grew up very familiar with these paintings, seeing these paintings. And this is not who Jesus Christ was. Now, we'll just start off by saying, I'm not necessarily saying he was a big guy. I'm not saying that, because he was the lineage of David, and David wasn't necessarily a big guy either. But what I will say, he was a carpenter. And like if we look at this painting, for example, by Heinrich Hoffman, I mean, these hands are just very dainty. They look like either a woman's hands or a piano player's hands, or you know, somebody who maybe just really never worked a day in their life with their hands. What a carpenter's hands look like is they look strong. They look worked. Jesus would have been a very strong man. He would have had a lot of strength in him. He would have been used to hard labor from a young man on. And that's just not the image that people are portraying. And I don't know why these images were chosen hundreds of years ago to say, here's kind of what Jesus would have looked like. But we need to get feminine Jesus out of our heads. He was not a dainty little man who didn't work or just easily was captured and killed. We need to just get that image out of our head, because who he was he was a hard-working man, who his father was God. Let's just start there. This would have not been a wimpy fella at all. This would have been a hardened man who was willing to do anything it took to be about his earthly father's business and his heavenly father's business, whatever it took. And he dedicated his whole life to those two men, being his father Joseph and his heavenly father Yahweh, God, Lord, all caps. He dedicated his entire life to those two. And we have to get this image out of our head, because when people come to a knowledge of Jesus, we have to get this image where this soft little dainty woman looking man came along and then they captured him and nailed him across the end. That's not how it played out, but that's the story we see. That's the, you know, when you watch the Jesus films, that's what we see. We don't see a hardened man willing to lay down his life freely for you and for me and for the entire world. This is the image we have to get out of our heads. And just because a few German painters a long time ago decided this is what it was going to be like, we have to get that out of our heads. You know, we have to start showing Jesus as a well-worked, hardened, tough man, not a dainty, feminine woman who easily gets captured and killed. Because, you know, when Jesus laid on the cross, he voluntarily laid on the cross. He could have decreated the entire universe with a spoken word, but he chose to lay down his life for you and I. That's what he was born to do, and he knew it. You know, imagine what it would be like to go through the beating that Jesus went through when he's getting flogged with those cat tails and beaten, and I mean, just a day of beating. A night and then a day of beating, and then you're to drag 2 giant logs shaped as a cross up through the city and then up a giant hill, and then lay there and get nailed to a cross and still be conscious. I don't think I could do that, and I don't think most of us, you guys watching this, that's a strength that is it takes a strong man to endure that and stay conscious. So, you know, a carpenter's hands are not little womanly hands, they're strong hands. We just have to get that image out of our heads. We have to start seeing Jesus Christ as a strong man who is what the Son of God would be like. So love to hear your thoughts on all that. Put it in the comments below. If you like this video, click like and subscribe. If you feel called to support this channel to Patreon, that link is also below. But the most important part of this channel is we take prayer requests, so please don't ever hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.